Open up your video notes, title it Comp Practice Q3, number 1. All right, we're going to be looking at adding decimals. When we add decimals, it's very important that we line up the decimals when we add them. So you'll notice that I have my decimals lined up and I'm going to fill in my numbers. So the first number is 3.2. The second number you'll notice is a 5 and it doesn't have a decimal. So when we don't have a decimal written in, we know that it is behind the number. So we're going to put the 5 in front of the decimal. And then 1 decimal 6 and decimal 314. So now that we have the decimals lined up, we're going to fill in the zeros to hold our place values. So of course we're going to add 3 zeros after the 5 and 2 zeros after the 2. And now we're ready to add. So we're going to get 4, 1, and then I add 6, 2, and 3, and I get 11. The decimal stays where it is. Carry my 1. 5 and 3 is 8, 9, and then 10. All right, we're going to add fractions. For fractions, we need to have a common denominator. So I'm going to start with 3 and 4. I'm going to multiply 3 times 4 and get 12. And because 2 goes into 12, I'm going to go ahead and use 12. 12 is the number that all 3 numbers go into. So 2 times 6 is 12. 6 times 1 is 6. Brother-sister rule, whatever I multiply the denominator by, I need to multiply the numerator by. So I'm going to multiply 1/3 by 4, which is going to give me 4/12. And I'm going to multiply 1/4 by 3. Now my denominator is the same, so all I'm going to do is add the numerators, and I'm going to get 13. I need to change 13 into a mixed number. 12 goes into 13 one time. 1 is left over, so that's going to become my new numerator, and my denominator stays the same. So my answer is 1 and 1/12. I'm going to multiply the 2 decimals. So when I multiply the decimals, it doesn't matter whether the decimals line up or not when I'm multiplying, because I'm going to use another method to determine where the decimal goes in my answer. So 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 1 is 3. I'll hold my place value. And then 1 times 2 is 2, and 1 times 1 is 1. You can also put a 0 here if you would like to put a 0 here. So it's 6 and 5 and 1. I'm going to count how many digits are behind the decimal. So there's 1 digit behind the decimal here and 1 digit behind the decimal here. I'm going to come down and I'm going to move the decimal 2 places. So my answer is going to be 1 decimal 5, 6. Now to do this problem, 7 minus 3/5, there's 2 different ways of doing it. The first way is to do 7 minus 3 and 1/5, and that's to simply know that 7 can be rewritten as 6 and 5/5 minus 3 and 1/5. Now I chose to make this fifths because this was a 5. And I wanted to have my denominators already in common. And so 6 and 5/5, 6 and 5/5 is the same as 7. I just rewrote it. Now all I'm going to do is subtract, and I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 5 and the 1, and that's going to give me 4. My denominators are both 5, so they're going to stay 5. And then 6 minus 3 is 3, so 3 and 4/5. Now I can also do common denominator with 7 over 1 minus 3 and 1/5. So this is going to be, I'm going to multiply and add, which gives me 16/5. Then I'm going to multiply this by 5 and this by 5, because this will also give me a 5 in my denominator, and it will give me 35 in my numerator. Now I'm going to do 35 minus 16 is going to give me 19 over 5. And then I'm going to put that into a mixed number. 5 goes into 19 3 times. 4 is left over, which makes my new numerator. And 5 stays my denominator. So I get the same answer. Last question, I'm dividing two decimals. The first thing that I need to remember is that I cannot divide with the decimal, so I'm going to change and move that decimal 2 places and do the same thing inside, move that decimal 2 places. So now I'm actually dividing 5 into 6.25. So 5 goes into 6 one time. Notice that I'm lining up my number, and that's 5. Subtract. I'm going to bring down the 1 and subtract with the 1. 5 goes into 11 2 times. I'm going to subtract, bring down the 5, and 5 goes into 15 3 times. So my answer is 1.23. And now you know how to do your comp practice.